Hello children and welcome to the session today. Children, we have learned a lot about living things and how they are different from non-living things. Now what is more important for us to understand here is that it is only the living things that react to their environment. Non-living things usually are not affected, but yes, there are certain changes that may take place. Now different living organisms live in different places. So whether you go to the coastal areas or you go to the high mountains, everywhere you will find that there are living organisms. Whether it is a polar bear, a camel, or it is tiny unicellular organisms. And in all these places, whether the temperature is very hot, very cold, or normal, these living organisms have a way of living. This is what we are going to understand today in chapter number 10, Living Organisms and Their Surroundings. We are going to understand how the biotic and abiotic components of the environment interact with each other. We are going to understand the different types of habitats and how different animals adapt to these. Now, children, living organisms exchange material and resources from the environment. So, we know that animals need oxygen from plants. And plants are also dependent on animals. How? They are dependent on animals for carbon dioxide. So, we all are interdependent on each other. Now, all the things in an environment are together differentiated into living components and non-living components. The living components are known as biotic, bio meaning life, and non-living components are known as abiotic. Now let us understand about these components in detail. The biotic and abiotic components constitute the natural environment. The living things like plants, animals, and microorganisms constitute the biotic components. The non-living things like air, water, soil, sunlight, temperature, etc. constitute the abiotic components. The biotic components are divided into three groups: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Green plants that prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis using carbon dioxide, water, and energy from the sunlight are called producers. Organisms that depend directly or indirectly on the food prepared by the plants are called consumers. So now we have basically understood that there are producers and they are consumers. We also have understood what are primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. So we take the example of grass and we take the example of grasshopper. Grasshopper is going to be called primary consumer and a frog is going to be called a secondary consumer. A snake in this case will be known as a tertiary consumer. Now all these biotic components, they interact with each other. Now coming to the place where an animal stays. A place where an animal stays is known as its habitat. A habitat can be different areas. It can be aquatic habitat, it can be terrestrial habitat. Aquatic habitat means it can be an ocean, it can be a sea. A terrestrial habitat can be simple plain land, it can be mountains, it can be deserts. So lakes, ponds and rivers are freshwater habitats and oceans and seas are saltwater habitats. The animals that are going to be living in these two different habitats are going to have different characteristics. You will see a larger variety of animals in oceans and seas. But majorly the way they breathe, the way they reproduce is going to be the same. Coming next to terrestrial habitat. Now terrestrial habitat can either be a grassland where you will find giraffes, zebra, lions, tigers, etc. It can be a rainforest where you are going to find monkeys, etc. Or it can be mountains where you will find the yak, you will find the llama, alpaca, lion, camel, etc. Now, depending on these different places where an animal stays, it develops features which will be particular to these different habitats only. For example, in a grassland, you will not find monkeys swinging from one tree to another because you will see large patches of grass, lesser trees. Okay? And in a rainforest, the trees are stuck to each other like they are bound together. So it is easy for monkeys to climb from one tree to another. Now let us watch a video to understand the different kinds of adaptations.
The aquatic habitat includes oceans, seas, ponds, and lakes. Most aquatic animals like fish have a streamlined body to move easily in water. They have gills to breathe. Some animals like octopus and squids do not have a streamlined shape. They stay near the seabed and catch the prey that moves towards them. When they move in water, they make their bodies streamlined. Dolphins and whales are aquatic mammals that do not have gills. They breathe through nostrils or blowholes located on the upper parts of their heads. A variety of plants grow in ponds and lakes. Free-floating plants like lotus and water hyacinth float freely in water. The leaves are large and flat with a waxy coating on them, making them waterproof. Submerged plants like Hydrilla velesna remain totally underwater. The leaves are narrow and ribbon-like, allowing water to pass through them without damaging them. Frogs that are found near ponds have webbed feet to swim in water and hop on land. Their moist skin helps them to breathe in water. They breathe with the help of lungs on land.
So we have understood that animals in aquatic habitat breathe through gills. They swim. They are able to swim with the help of their fins. Then their roots are reduced in sizes. Then the plants will have very tiny leaves so that the water can seep through without tearing off the plants. Coming to adaptations in grassland habitat. So they are prone to very strong wind, sunlight and dry season. So therefore, the plants and trees will have flexible stalks and stems which will prevent them from bending. They will have deep roots. What are the animals going to do? The animals will have stripes so that they are able to camouflage. They'll be very strong runners. So physically, they have to be very strong. Their paws and claws are very soft padded so that when they are attacking their prey, they do it very quietly. Then they have eyes in front of the skull and they have very strong vision. The herbivores will have strong flat teeth. The carnivores are going to have very, very strong teeth and a very strong sense of smell. Now let's talk about tropical rainforest. In tropical rainforest, which receive very heavy rainfalls, what is going to happen? The forest is going to be covered with many dead leaves and it is going to be very sticky all the time because sunlight does not reach there. So with all the moisture around, you will have molds, you will have mushrooms growing in the floor. Then in order to survive, the plants in the lower levels will have broader and larger leaves so that they can collect more sunlight. The animals in the tropical rainforest, they are majorly camouflaged. Children, coming to the desert habitat, very high temperature, very, very little amount of water. So we know the example of cactus. We know that the leaves are reduced to spines to reduce transpiration. The stem is enlarged in size. The stem conducts photosynthesis. The roots go very deep inside the soil so that they can capture whatever water there is available. Coming to the animals, we know that camel is known as the ship of the desert. It has got a large hump where it stores food and water. That is why it can survive without food and water for a long time. It has got large flat soles and legs that prevent it from the heat of the dust. It has got very thick eyelashes which prevent the dust to go inside its eyes, and it excretes out drier excreta, and urine is also less in volume. Coming to polar and mountain habitat, again we have seen and we know that polar bears are white in color so that they can camouflage. Even the Arctic fox is white in color so that it can camouflage. Just like the trees in the desert region, here also the leaves are reduced to spine. Why? So that they do not cause a lot of transpiration, because water is a problem in these areas also. And adaptations in animals, we know that they undergo hibernation, which is a long sleep, so that they do not eat a lot. So children, in this chapter, we have learned so much about living organisms and how they change themselves according to their environment. So I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed the chapter and are ready to do the questions at the back. Thank you for joining us.